And for a quick reaction to the opposition leader's presentation, we're joined by development economist Dr. Chris Stokes. Dr. Stokes, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, lots to digest, Dr. Stokes, but Mr. Golding argues that the government's tax package is pro-cyclical and risks deepening economic decline while proposing improved tax compliance instead of new taxes. Now, from a practical standpoint, how realistic is it to generate that level of revenue from compliance reforms in the short term, especially given Jamaica's current administrative capacity?
Well, that's the right question to ask. How practical is it in the short term? But without doubt, there's too much being left on the table. The electronic invoicing system, for example, would help tremendously. What's going on in the port would help tremendously. But to be clear, many governments and successive governments have tried to address this problem, and it persists, which is not to say that we should give up on trying, but it is to say that it exists. There's an acknowledgement that it exists. And I think what Mr. Golden is asking for is a more focused attempt or approach to addressing it. And I think that is a fair thing to call for. Will it be as predictable as raising taxes? No, it won't be. It will require more work, but I think it needs to be done in any case. If not for this year, certainly for years going forward, and for having a credible tax system that allows people to pay whatever the tax is. You may call it a fair share of taxes, because this is not the only year that we're thinking about. We have to be thinking about years going forward. So to the extent that we can collect more on taxes that are already on the books, and that's to the extent to which we will diminish the discussion about new taxes. And of course, there's whether it's a new tax or it's collecting what people should be paying that aren't paying, it still will have the effect of taking more money out of the economy, which in this case is a pro-cyclical, if the cyclical is a bad cyclical, which it is, because the economy is going down. So there's a discussion that we can have on as to the impact on economic activity from either raising taxes or collecting more taxes from those who owe it. But I think from an equity point of view and from an efficiency point of view, we definitely ought to go for collecting taxes that are properly due under current legislation.
Okay. Stepping away from taxes just for a bit, the presentation criticizes low growth, about 0.8%, and calls for more aggressive investment during the fiscal rules suspension. Is the opposition effectively arguing for a loosening of fiscal discipline? And if so, how risky is that given Jamaica's hard-won debt stability?
Yeah, let me put the rest of it. I don't see a circumstance under which Mark Golden, the architect of the current system that we're operating on with the fiscal rules, is going to be among the first to break those rules. So I wouldn't go there. I think the argument is that under the circumstances, some relaxation, obviously they're in favor of some additional debt to get us through this period of time, is an approach that they're taking. But I don't think anybody is arguing to throw out the fiscal use in its entirety forever and forever. So I'm not concerned about that, but I think an argument that says that we should incur a little more debt, spend a little bit more to get through this stage is something worth considering.
Okay. And just before I wrap up, Dr. Stokes, was there any area that you didn't hear the opposition leader address that you expected him to speak on?
My general impression really was that Mr. Golden gave a litany of issues that have been a problem for Jamaica for 40 years. Energy, where he said, you haven't fixed it, this is how we'll fix it. Education, you haven't fixed it, this is how we'll fix it. Housing, same thing. Health, you haven't fixed it, this is how we'll fix it. So it near to the end, it took on a little bit a sense of campaigning as opposed to the credible economic arguments that were heard at the beginning, and it is a political activity. So really, the only thing that is left is, if you are going to do these things, if you're going to give this coverage, if you're going to create, provide housing and incentives to people, how are you going to pay for it? And this is always the Achilles heel of presentations made by the opposition, where are the dollars and cents going to come from to meet the expenses? And that wasn't very, very clear to me today, even though the philosophy and the idea of a different approach was well established. The specifics were certainly left unanswered.
All right. Thank you so much. Development economist Dr. Chris Stokes there weighing in on the opposition leader Mark Golding's contribution to the budget debate. Still to come this evening, Jamaicans pay tribute to departing Cuban health workers with a symbolic gesture in downtown Kingston. And in business news, Woodcats International lists on junior market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. We'll be right back.